Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for being here. Because what broke just after 2 a.m. is one of those developments that quietly slips through the night and then completely reshapes the financial outlook for millions of Americans by morning. While most of the country was asleep, a confirmation arrived out of Washington that instantly turned weeks of rumors, leaks, and speculation into official policy. The $2,000 tariff rebate checks are no longer just talk. They have now been formally approved, and the way this decision was made, the timing of it, and the changes that came with it tell a much bigger story than the headline number alone. This was not a polished primetime announcement. There was no podium, no cameras, no countdown clock on cable news. Instead, the confirmation came quietly through internal Treasury notifications shortly after 2 a.m., signaling that the program had officially moved out of the discussion phase and into execution. That detail matters more than people realize, because once a program reaches this stage, the remaining steps are largely administrative, not political. The machinery starts turning, systems get aligned, and eligibility reviews move from theory to reality. At approximately 2 a.m., President Trump formally approved a revised structure for the $2,000 tariff rebate checks after reviewing updated economic data late into the night. This approval didn't just greenlight payments. It also reshaped who stands closest to receiving them. And for seniors across the country, especially those living on fixed incomes, this moment carries far more weight than it might initially appear. Early headlines focused on middle-income families and workers impacted by rising tariffs, but the documents released overnight revealed something far more consequential happening behind the scenes. The tariff rebate program is funded through revenue collected from import tariffs, not through a traditional stimulus bill passed by Congress. That distinction is critical because it changes everything about how fast and how flexibly this program can move. Once eligibility categories are finalized, the Treasury Department has the authority to proceed without waiting for lawmakers to debate, negotiate, or vote. According to officials familiar with the process, the president approved a revised eligibility framework late in the evening after reviewing reports that highlighted an uncomfortable and increasingly urgent reality. Inflation has hit older Americans harder than almost any other group. Rising food prices, higher utility bills, increasing rent, and mounting medical expenses have placed enormous strain on seniors who rely almost entirely on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI. Until now, that reality was not fully reflected in the original design of the tariff rebate program, but overnight, that changed. What makes this update different is not just the confirmation of the $2,000 checks themselves, it's the quiet restructuring that happened at the same time. A restructuring that moves seniors away from the back of the line and closer to the front. For months, seniors were broadly mentioned in discussions about relief, but without any real priority status. Now, for the first time, they have been formally elevated within the system. The question many people are asking is simple but important. Who benefits most from this shift, and why did it happen so suddenly, without warning or public explanation? The answer begins with a brand new eligibility list that did not exist earlier this week. Low-income seniors were quietly added to a newly created priority category, fundamentally changing how the program will operate moving forward. As confirmation of the $2,000 tariff rebate checks began circulating late last night, another critical detail emerged, one that had not appeared in any public statements just days ago. Low-income seniors were added to a new eligibility list, a list created specifically to identify households with limited or fixed income and minimal financial flexibility. This change was not accidental, and it was not symbolic. According to internal Treasury documentation, officials were instructed to reassess which groups were experiencing the most immediate and severe impact from rising prices. While working households and middle-income families were already included in the original framework, seniors were initially treated as part of a broad group without any special weighting. That approach has now been reversed entirely. For the first time, seniors living on fixed incomes are being treated as a priority group rather than an afterthought. If you rely on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI as your primary or only source of income, your eligibility profile has fundamentally changed. Treasury officials created a new classification for households with limited purchasing power, and seniors were placed squarely within that category. In practical terms, this means seniors are no longer waiting behind millions of working households in the payment queue. Many have been moved closer to the front, where reviews happen faster and verification is simpler. For seniors who have been struggling month to month, stretching benefits to cover rent, groceries, utilities, and medical costs, this change is more than administrative. It is a formal recognition of vulnerability. Treasury language in the updated guidance explicitly states that households with limited purchasing power should not be left behind when tariff revenue is returned to the public. That single sentence triggered a cascade of internal changes. Officials familiar with the review process say the decision was fast-tracked after updated economic data showed a sharp rise in financial stress among seniors, particularly those receiving below-average Social Security benefits. Seniors receiving lower monthly payments were identified as being among the most impacted by inflation, often more so than working families whose incomes can adjust over time through raises or additional hours. This is a key detail many people are missing. The priority list is not just a label. It directly affects how quickly eligibility is reviewed and how soon payments can be approved. For seniors, this represents a quiet but powerful shift. It is the first clear sign that the tariff rebate program is being targeted not just at broad economic groups, but at those with the least ability to absorb rising costs. And the speed at which this change happened has raised eyebrows across Washington. Many seniors are asking why this shift occurred almost overnight, without any public announcement or press briefing. The explanation lies in a series of economic reports delivered to the White House in recent days. Those reports painted a troubling picture of how inflation is impacting older Americans in ways that are both immediate and severe. According to internal briefings, President Trump reviewed updated data showing a sharp increase in financial hardship among seniors, especially those receiving less than roughly $1,300 per month from Social Security. The data showed that while inflation affects nearly everyone, seniors on fixed incomes have far less ability to adapt. Unlike working households, seniors cannot increase their income when prices rise. Their checks remain largely unchanged, while expenses continue climbing. Rent increases, higher grocery bills, rising utility costs, and escalating prescription drug prices have created a widening gap between income and expenses for millions of retirees. That imbalance was identified as a major weakness in the original tariff rebate design. One senior economic advisor reportedly summarized it bluntly by saying that if tariff revenue is returned to Americans, those with the least buying power should not be last in line. That principle became the catalyst for a fast-track internal review. Behind closed doors, Treasury officials were instructed to reassess eligibility priorities with a focus on real-world impact rather than broad categories. The goal was not to expand the program or increase its overall cost, but to redirect it toward those most financially exposed. When analysts evaluated who feels price increases immediately and who cannot absorb them over time, seniors ranked highest on the scale. Those dependent on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI rose quickly to the top of the list. Officials also made a strategic decision to avoid premature leaks. They delayed public disclosure until the revised structure was fully approved and Treasury systems were aligned to implement it. That is why the confirmation arrived quietly, in the early morning hours instead of through a major announcement. By the time the public learned about it, the decision was already finalized. Seniors were not just added to the program, they were elevated within it. To understand why this matters so much, it's important to understand how the tariff rebate program works and why it differs from traditional stimulus checks. Unlike past stimulus payments, which required congressional approval and were funded through large spending bills, this program is financed through revenue already collected from import tariffs. Tariffs are taxes placed on goods entering the United States, and President Trump has consistently argued that when these tariffs generate excess revenue, that money should be returned to American households rather than sitting unused in government accounts. That philosophy is the foundation of this program. Because the money already exists, Treasury does not need Congress to pass a new law to distribute it. Once eligibility is finalized, Treasury has the authority to move forward. That is why the 2 a.m. confirmation was so significant. It was effectively a green light to begin final preparations. Another major difference is verification. Past stimulus programs often required new filings, applications, or manual reviews. This program relies heavily on existing IRS and Social Security Administration data. For seniors, this is a major advantage. Most retirees already have their income, benefit status, and payment information on file, allowing for faster confirmation. This structure also explains how Treasury was able to introduce a new priority system so quickly. Officials adjusted internal scoring models rather than rebuilding the program from scratch. However, this flexibility also introduced complexity. Treasury reorganized the payment process into a 3-tier system designed to prioritize those most affected by inflation. Under the revised model, low-income seniors were moved directly into Tier 1, the highest priority category. The system evaluates income level, reliance on government benefits, purchasing power, and income stability. Seniors relying primarily on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI score high because their income is fixed and particularly vulnerable to rising prices. As a result, many seniors earning under roughly $30,000 per year or receiving below the national median Social Security benefit saw their eligibility scores increase sharply. Tier 2 now includes many working households, while Tier 3 is reserved for higher income cases that require additional verification. This is the clearest breakdown yet of who is prioritized and why. Seniors were not simply included, they were elevated. Income thresholds play a crucial role in this system. According to Treasury guidelines, households earning under roughly $30,000 per year are strong candidates for priority review, but income stability matters just as much as income level. Seniors whose primary income comes from Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or survivor benefits are automatically flagged for expedited review. One key threshold involves monthly Social Security payments. Seniors receiving under approximately $1,300 per month are now considered highly vulnerable. A separate category exists for those receiving under $100 per month, placing them in the highest priority lane. Treasury is also bypassing previous verification bottlenecks by relying on SSA data for seniors who do not file tax returns. Importantly, relying solely on federal benefits does not disqualify you. In fact, it moves you forward in the process. For most seniors, there is no need to apply. Treasury will use existing IRS and SSA data to verify eligibility automatically. Seniors relying on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI are considered fast verify households. However, if your address or direct deposit information has changed, you may be asked to confirm details through official IRS or SSA portals. These requests should not be ignored. Seniors who do not file tax returns are not excluded and may actually move faster than working households that require income verification through tax data. Payment timing is based on tier placement, not on when the program was announced. While exact payment dates have not yet been released, seniors placed in Tier 1 are positioned for early review. Treasury processes approvals by tier, meaning seniors may see confirmation before many other groups. Approval does not always mean immediate payment, as verification of payment methods follows. But status updates may appear well before funds are released. Early projections suggest seniors could receive confirmation weeks ahead of Tier 2 groups. And for many seniors, one of the biggest concerns is whether this payment will affect existing benefits. Treasury officials have confirmed that the $2,000 rebate is not counted as income and does not reduce Social Security, SSI, or SSDI benefits. It will not trigger benefit reviews or affect cost of living adjustments. For SSI recipients, the payment is not treated as income, though holding large sums for extended periods could affect asset-based programs, which is why officials recommend using the funds for essential expenses. Accepting the payment does not trigger audits or additional scrutiny. It is treated as a rebate, not earnings. For now, the most important step seniors should take is to ensure their information with the SSA and IRS is accurate, particularly addresses and direct deposit details. Check official portals regularly and respond promptly to any verification notices. Be cautious of scams, as no agency will contact you asking for personal information by phone, text, or email. Looking ahead, Treasury's next updates are expected to focus on payment windows rather than eligibility changes. Seniors who have been moved into Tier 1 are well positioned as the program enters its final phase. This update does not solve every financial challenge facing older Americans, but it marks a meaningful shift. Seniors are no longer at the back of the line. They are finally being recognized as a priority in a system designed to return tariff revenue to those who need it most. If this information helped you understand what's happening and what it means for you or someone you care about, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update as soon as new details are released.